All right, so what we have today, I have notes for myself so I don't forget anything because there is so much great stuff going on and I am so excited. Now it is time to draw and to paint lady's glove, which also looks like foxglove, etc. So lady's glove, foxglove, delphinium, not delphinium, it's digitalis, that's it. They're all the same group of flower, and we have one long stem with a bunch of different bell-shaped flowers coming off of it. And I've been really excited to do this drawing and painting tutorial because we haven't done a bell-shaped flower yet. So here is just a loose sketch I did of what we're going to cover today. I know that you already know the answer, but I'm going to call on Sandy because I know that Sandy knows the answer because she said it yesterday. But what's the first thing that we do? Lori, I know you know the answer too, so go ahead. Lori, Sandy, jump in, tell me, what is the first thing we do when we're looking at a complex flower and we're going to start to draw it? Hint. Okay, where's my Sharpie? There we go. I hope you guys appreciate that my very fancy drawing tools for these classes are printer paper and, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, practice the part, says Lori, printer paper and a Sharpie, because that's what shows up best on this camera. Sandy says break it down into individual shapes. That's exactly right. And this one is such a great, Debbie just joined, woohoo! Oh my goodness, you guys, I'm going to cry. Don't make me cry. But you could make me cry if you want to. I don't mind. Okay. This one is the best one for breaking down into shapes. And we couldn't have done this week 1 because you wouldn't have known yet about breaking everything down into shapes and drawing your ellipses and stuff. So we're going to be combining a few different things with this, and I am psyched because if you follow these instructions step by step, you are going to be able to draw a foxglove, a lady's glove, digitalis, whatever you want to call it. Now, I don't know if we have any gardeners in the group, but I believe that foxglove is very poisonous if you eat it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take, just like the multi-headed flowers, we break the whole thing down into shapes, and then we break the individual pieces down into shapes. So for the whole thing, it's going to be kind of a big egg-shaped oval, and then it will have its stem coming out, and also the stem is going to run through the center of that. And then we're going to start out with circles, and those circles are just going to get progressively bigger as you work your way down. You can kind of ghost some into the background there. Okay, smaller at the top and larger at the bottom, and we're just filling this shape in, okay? But now, what are each of these individual shapes going to be? And this is the part where it gets really cool. So I'm going to draw an oval, like a circle over here, just like these. And this is step number 1. Okay, so step number 1, and these are guidelines, remember. So I would recommend doing these in pencil because then you can erase the pencil guidelines when you put the pen or the paint onto it. But for right now, we're going to have a circle. On the bottom third, you're going to draw an oval. Okay, and then we're going to follow this line around like this, but when you get to right here, scoop it in and back out. Okay, so this is going to give us that shape of the flower. So you're going to scoop it in and back out to meet it right at the edges of that circle, of that ellipse. Okay, that's step number, 1, circle, 2, circle, and then draw an ellipse at the bottom. 3, well, I guess it's an oval. Ellipse at the bottom, and then we're going to draw these lines in. So it starts to look like a bell. 4, this is another thing I'm going to put in the membership, is just detailed, as we work our way through different flowers, is these detailed step-by-step breakdowns, because it just is so awesome to be able to look at that and be like, oh, now I know how to draw that flower. Step number 4. Starting at this side, you're going to do a wiggly line that comes down a little bit and back up, and then just squiggle along the top line. Okay, so that's like this. And it doesn't have to be the same, you can make it big wiggles, little wiggles, whatever you want. Okay. All right, step number 5. We have our ellipse, another ellipse. We have our connecting lines like this. We have our squiggle like that. And now we're going to draw a little crown shape here at the top that comes up and comes up into a little stem. Okay. So that's this little stem coming there. Okay, give me a thumbs up or a heart because how amazing is this step by step, right? It's so good. I like this one. I did not come up with this all by the way, which is how come I can say that I love this so much. I learned this a while ago. So we have all of these steps here. We've got our little crown on top. And now what you're going to do is draw in that bell shape all of these little dots because they have a very pretty, it's almost like a cheetah or a leopard kind of design inside of it. Okay, and that looks really cool. And then step number 7 is when we're going to start to add contour lines and shading. Okay, so we're going to have some shading. And remember, because it's that rounded shape, you usually want to have it be darker on one side and lighter, like completely light in the center, and then lighter as we work our way around, and darker on this side, like that. Okay, and that gives us that bell shape. And then inside here, we're also going to have some shading because it's going to be a lot darker inside of here. Okay, so there's one bell shape. Now, the cool thing is that as we go back here and when you start to fill in all of those shapes, you can have your lips facing into different directions, just like we've talked about before. And then you still do the exact same thing, but now it's facing off to the side. See that? Right, and then in the front one here. Okay, and we'd have our little collar down here. And then we have it face off to whatever direction we want, which I just think that is so cool because you have so much perspective in there. So would you like, let's see, this live is going to go a little bit longer than normal, I think. But tell me, would you like me to actually do this with pencil and a drawing pen for a couple of the bells so that you can see what it would look like when I actually take time and do it, all of the steps? Or would you like me to go right onto the loose watercolor? Or both? Up to you guys. Let me know. Should I do a detailed drawing, go to the watercolor now, or do both of those things if you have the time for it? And of course, the replay will be available, so you'll be able to come back and watch this anytime. So if you're not able to finish the whole thing today, that is quite all right. I have some watercolor paper here. Sandy says both. Barbara says both. Cheryl says pencil. Okay. All right, you guys voted first, so I'm just going to do what you do. Joanne says for me, it is surely both. I like that. Okay, both. Let's do both. I have a little bit more time today. I'm not rushing off to lunch or anything, so I'm going to do both. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. Move this out of the way. Okay, there we go. Hopefully you guys can see that all right. I have my trusty 2B pencil. I have this eraser for today, and I have my Unipin pen. And I don't know if Janine is going to watch this replay. I don't think she's able to watch it right now because she's in South Africa, but Janine is the one who won the whole drawing set. So if you're watching, Janine, grab your tools. You have the same tools as me. So like I said, we're going to start with having that center stem, and you know this by now, I'm sure, but I always draw my straight lines by turning the paper a little bit. It just helps me to get it a little bit more straight than it otherwise would be. And then I'm going to draw my large lollipop shape, and actually it is a bit wider at the bottom, so I'm going to do that. The cool thing about when you're sketching with pencil too is you can kind of adjust it like this and leave this messy part because you're going to erase it all. So what I'm going to do is start by drawing those ovals in, and they're going to be bigger at the bottom, and I'm just going to kind of scatter them around a little bit so that then I can put ones in front and behind. Okay, so I'm getting smaller, a little bit smaller as I get up to the top, And now I can kind of make these circles over here behind these, right, and ghost those lines just like we talked about yesterday. There we go. Okay, have it be a little bit bigger down here again. That one's behind there. Put this one behind here. And when you have some that are in front and some that are behind, it gives it a lot more depth too. And it also helps with the shading later on, because you know that the things that are behind something else, this one is going to be a little bit darker because this will cast a shadow. This one will block the light from getting to this one. Okay, so there's the full thing. I might put one more right here. And this is a very simple tip, but sometimes it just helps to pick something up, change your perspective. If you're ever painting and you're not sure how your painting is looking or drawing, a really great way to check it out objectively is to take a photo of it and look at the photo. And that almost acts like this third eye where you can see where you've gone wrong or where you need to add something more to it. So that's something I like to do. So I'm going to do this one right here in the front, and it's going to have that ellipse right here. We're going to have the lines that come down and meet this in this bell shape. Then we have our squiggly line that comes around. And we have this stem that we've drawn behind here, so I know that everything's going to connect to that stem, so I'll go ahead and put this crown in on top like so, and have that just connecting back to that stem. Okay? So that part feels pretty good for the pencil, and that's the point where I would grab my pen and I'm ready to put details in. Joanne says, are they round or oval? You know what? I think it's more oval than round. You could do it as a circle, but I think do an oval. It's a little bit easier to have that elongated bell shape when you do an oval. Okay, so now I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to draw over those pencil lines, and I'm using them as a guideline. Remember, they're a guideline, and you only want to draw the ones that are actually going to stay, right? You don't want to draw all of those guidelines. Just the lines that are going to be visible. Have that stem go up like that. Okay, and then at this point, we have a pretty good flower shape. And we have those circles that come down, and they are, looking at a picture, they're a little bit bigger in the center. Like so. Like that. And we could erase that part right now, or we could start to draw contour lines. And so one thing that I've mentioned, right, is to have one side be a little bit lighter than the other. So let's say that the sun is over here, okay, and I'm just going to draw a little sun over here to remind us that the light is coming from here. So this side is going to be a lot lighter, the highlight's going to be right here, and then this side will be a lot darker. So I'll draw these contour lines just coming down, following the shape of that bell. Like so. Have some contour lines coming out of this top part because that's going to cast a shadow, and we just have a little bit of contouring over here. Okay, and that starts to give us our shape. I'm going to have it be just a bit darker by layering those lines, adding some more ink lines over here. And when you're painting, it just means that you're going to have darker paint on that side. Right? Okay, that looks great. And then we have this up here. We can add some contour lines onto this stem. And at this point, I would erase it so that I can see how the whole thing looks without any interference from the pencil. Okay, and then over here, we have one coming off to the side. So still have the ellipse. We're going to draw our bell lines in. Isn't it just so useful having the guidelines there? It just takes all the guesswork out of it. Squiggle, we're going to have this coming out of that center stem. Okay, and when you get there, that's when you can draw in pen. Like this. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and just erase some of the pencil back here now that that ink has definitely dried. It dries pretty quickly. I just like to be extra careful because I've smudged things in the past. Okay, and then we could put our little detailed circles in here and continue with our contouring. And you can do one at a time like this, or you could do, step 1 for every petal or every bell, and then step 2 for every one. So you don't have to do it exactly like this, but I just wanted to show you start to finish what that looks like. Okay. And then down here, we also want to do a little bit of contouring because it's going to be a lot darker right underneath the lip of this. Okay, and that's what's going to give this some shape. So I'm just doing some cross hatching here. And that shows that that is really the inside of the bell because, of course, how can the sunlight get there if it's the inside of it, right? It would be really hard for that sunlight to get there. So you want it quite dark right at the lip of that and then coming out to be lighter and lighter. That makes sense? There we go. Look at that. Isn't that cool? So once you know how to draw the shape, which is great, being able to draw the petals, when you add the shading, that is when things really pop. So if you need a little bit more help shading, that's okay. I would just practice, honestly, and a good way to practice is if you draw a circle, and you could do this with painting too, but if you draw a circle and you think like the sun is shining here, so over here it's going to be darker, right? If it's a sphere, over here is going to be lighter. And then you can practice different shading methods. So we've talked about cross hatching. You go in like this and cross hatch it. And where those pen lines are becoming layered, it's getting darker, right? And you just go in these different angles. And okay, so that's one way to shade. You can go back. Another way is just to keep drawing those contour lines. Right? Darker and darker as you layer it on one side. So there's lots of ways that you can kind of practice shading, but it's a good idea to know where your light is coming from so that you know where the shadow is being cast. And really, if this is a sphere, then this whole thing is a shadow over here also. Right? And it starts to give us more depth. And shadows are always connected to the thing that they are a shadow of. So the shadow of this isn't going to be just over here by itself. It would be like that, okay? Just a little tip about shadows. All right, so there is the drawing. Let me zoom in on it for you. Tell me what you think. Tell me if that was useful, if you learned anything. I'll just leave that there for a second so you can see it. And then let's talk about painting these guys. And of course, I always say this, but the reason that we're able to do a loose painting of them is because we understand the shape, right? If we didn't understand the shape and go through this process, then we would have no idea how to do the painting. Okay, so keep our little document there. Just trying to get it in the shot so you can still kind of see it even as I'm painting. All right, here we go. Got my watercolor paper here. Got my palette of paint. And I have a glass of clean water. Okay, so I think everybody who has been watching already knows that my favorite way to paint is to paint with water and then drop the color in. So we're going to do that a little bit. We're going to also, oops, where did I put that other, oh, there it is. I'm going to also make sure that our colors are already ready to go over here. So I'm just going to use some purples and blues and whatever I have over here because why not, right? So I'm just mixing some water in and waking it back up. Okay. And of course, if you want to, when you start, you can very loosely draw those guideline shapes again. You could draw a circle where you want those things to be. And if it's very light, you're not going to see it when you paint on top of it anyway. And you may be able to erase some of it. Sometimes you can't erase paint. You can't erase behind the paint. So just something to keep in mind. So I'm just grabbing my pencil and I'm going to start by drawing that bell shape in the water. Okay, and I'm still using those guidelines. And then I'm going to fill it in like so. And then I'm going to drop some paint in. Okay, and then just make sure it follows that line, that bell shape all the way around. Okay, so we're going to start with that. Have it be nice and smooth, and then have that squiggly line down here, and just fill it in. Okay, so now I know I have the whole shape of that flower, and because it's so wet, you can kind of go and do a few of them. And this is, remember, the loose way of doing this. If you wanted to do it more realistically, you could draw it very specifically in pencil, erase the dark lines, and then you just have a sketch that you're working from, and people can't really see the pencil lines once you paint on it. So we're just doing this very loosely, which is a different way of painting. And you can, of course, do it more realistically. Okay, but this is okay. I like this. I like how these are going to kind of bleed together a little bit, blend together. I'm just putting different colors in now because I think it looks pretty. And because there's not really any rules. You can paint what you want to paint. Okay, so we have 3 little bell shapes already. And what I'm going to do, and again, this is just to speed up the process while we're here, is normally I would just let that air dry, but I'm just going to dab at it a little bit with a paper towel so that we can go on and do the next step and just accelerate the dry time a little bit. Okay, I have a little bit of green paint here, and the green paint is going to come and form the stems, and that's going to bleed a little bit into here, and I actually want it to because I can go back once it's dry and add the details, but in the meantime, it just looks really cool that it's all blending together. And watercolor is the only paint that can do this, and so I think it's great to lean into the strengths of watercolor, not try and fight it too much. There we go. There we go. Okay, so we're getting these really pretty loose shapes. It's still pretty damp, but I'm going to go ahead and proceed. So with a little bit of a darker purple here, that's what I'm going to use in the center. And that is in the center of that bell shape, I should say. Gives us some shading, lets us see that it's a little bit darker in there, and also gives us some delineation of the shape. So we know from drawing it that it goes down like this, and then it kind of comes straight across for the bell, right? Down like so, straight across. Do you see that bell shape there? Isn't that cool? And then let's just have the sun be coming from that same direction over here, which means that this side of the bell would also be a bit darker. So I'm going to put a little bit more water and shading onto that side. Okay, and then I just dried my brush off so that I can kind of pick up some of the extra water and blend it out. So it's a nice smooth gradient. Now, another thing I can do while it's wet, that's always such a hard sentence to say, while it's wet, is just drop a few little drops into the bell part of where those dots are going to be later. And they're going to blend and bleed a lot, but it looks cool, and it'll provide a good backdrop for us in a little bit. Okay. I need that to dry faster. Okay, while it's drying, does anybody have any questions or anything that you'd like me to show you here? Let me know. Oh, you know what? I did see a question from Lori pop up, and I forgot to answer it. Let's see. Lori said, the money isn't the problem, it's time. I have another project that came up, and it's very time consuming. So I would just, I guess, think about that. You've got, when you enter the membership, access to everything to do at your own speed. And I don't want it to be overwhelming, so the content isn't going to be every single day like this challenge has been. That would overwhelm you, and it would overwhelm me, and that wouldn't be good for anybody. But once a week, we're going to have something that we can all work on together. I think what I'm going to do also is have a monthly theme and a monthly challenge that we can all paint together and work through that. And then there's going to be core content so that if you're not comfortable with, for example, glazing as a technique, there's going to be a whole video, a little module that you can just learn about that. And so you'll be able to go through it at your own pace. And whether you're just beginning or you're along that pathway to success of already doing it, there's going to be something for everybody. So, I would just say it's a personal choice for sure about how much time you're able to spend and devote to that. But, you've been able to devote, a lot of you have been able to devote quite a bit of time in these last few weeks to doing this challenge along with me, and it's going to be less time consuming than this. So that's just a quick note about that. Yeah, I think overwhelm is very common and not fun. So I'm going to do my best to avoid any kind of overwhelm and make it easy to follow along at your own pace, have some live segments of it, but also some just downloadable things that you can do in your own time. So right now, because this is still wet, I've just gone back and added a bit more darkness right under that line. And when I add just a bit more dark paint under that top line, hopefully you can see what that's doing, is giving us so much more detail. You're welcome, Lori. Yeah, it helps me too. I'm part of a couple of memberships myself, and different things. One that I love is learning about surface pattern design, and because I never did digital art before. And so I've learned a lot about digital art, but I knew absolutely nothing about using Adobe Illustrator. And so some of the people in that membership were already like selling their patterns, and I was there not knowing anything, and they did such a good job of, you can start here, literally this is how you open the program and start drawing something. Or you can start here. This is how you sell your pattern. It went across that whole spectrum. And knowing that I could do that on my own time was really helpful for me. And it's still helpful for me. Okay. There we go. All right. So I hope you can see there that just adding these details as it dries is looking good. We're going to do the same thing with the stems now because those are dry. So I'm going to go in there with my brush and add the actual crown shapes there. Come up with the stem like that. Like so. This one's kind of coming down here. Like that. This has definitely been a longer live video today, but we covered a lot of material. Okay, we're almost done. Cheryl says, do I ever use a fan to dry my paint faster? No, I don't, because I normally don't need it to dry faster. I only am saying that now because we're live and I literally don't just want you guys sitting here watching paint dry. In the past, I've used a hairdryer sometimes, but usually when I'm painting something, like if I was painting this entire foxglove, right, I would be doing these steps all through different flowers, and so by the time I get back around to one, it's definitely dry. That's one of the cool things about painting flowers. There's always another step you can do, just because of the way I'm doing this right now. So I'm grabbing a little bit more purple paint to add onto the side here, because I want that to be just a bit more obvious that it's this bell shape. We have that shading and those shadows. Okay, and then when it's completely dry, which is not going to be right away, I can go in and add the contour lines. Okay, and down here what I would do, and I'm going to do it off to the side because that's definitely not dry, but down here what I would do is start to add just dots of those little kind of leopard print dots in there. So that would come later. And I can't do that right now because it will just all bleed in together. So I hope that you can start to see that the shape is really coming along. And the reason that it doesn't look flat and it starts to look more lifelike is because we have contrast. So remember, even on a stem, you want contrast. So if the sun is over here, even on this stem, you want it darker on this side. When you layer it, darker on this side and lighter on that side, right? See how just those little drops add a lot of detail to it? So there we have an example of a loose painting of Ladies Glove, Foxglove. It's not done yet because it's taking too long to dry, and we all have lives and other things to do, and we can't just sit here and watch paint dry. But I will post photos of that in the group also, and probably on Instagram, if I had to guess. So, before I stick my hand in this wet paint, boom. Okay, so there we go. Hopefully that was a very informative lesson. I have been actually really looking forward to doing the foxgloves with you and the ladies glove like that because they are such a cool looking flower. And I think if you just looked at it, you'd be like, I don't even know where to start. How do I draw a foxglove? But if you break it down into those parts, it's easy. Debbie, thanks. She says, awesome class. Barbara says, love it. So pretty. Thank you so much. You guys know those comments mean the world to me. So thank you. Here's the link one last time. If you want to jump into the membership today, if you're not ready yet, that is so okay and totally fine. It officially will launch tomorrow, and I'm going to be doing some webinars and showing you what it'll look like next week. So I'm going to release the schedule for that in a newsletter probably tomorrow. So that'll be really fun. Debbie says, will membership automatically renew or not? Well, the short answer is yes, and the long answer is as soon as I figure out the technology behind it. So I am yes, but probably it won't start automatically renewing until next month when I figure out how to get the code into the store. And I'm a watercolor artist, not a coder, but yes. Hopefully you guys think that's funny because it's just me. I can't pretend to be good at something like that. Barbara, thanks. You have a great day too. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.